probably siphon off some of the anti-Obama vote. I don't think there's any doubt about it.
But wouldn't it be fair to ask the moderate Republicans that are competing to ask the same question?
I've been asking
John Anderson approached. John Anderson dropped out and ran, and that's a significant.
But no intention means the door is open. So you're saying tonight that the door is open a little?
Well, the doors. I cannot conceive of it.
You can't conceive of any circumstance?
I cannot. Okay. I cannot conceive of it. Have absolutely no plans or thoughts of doing it.
All right. A lot came up tonight. Got very heated on the issue of national security in Iran. Let me ask you this question. With Iran killing Americans in Iraq, you argue we shouldn't have been there in the first place.
Right.
But they're also fighting proxy wars through Hezbollah and other terrorist organizations. They were planning an assassination of a Saudi ambassador on our soil. They clearly have said they want to wipe Israel off the map. Why do you think it wouldn't be dangerous if they got that nuclear weapon?
Well, I don't want them to get the nuclear weapon. It would increase the danger, but I don't think we should deal with that. But as far as thinking that should be the whole issue, I think you're losing the point, because there are a lot of nuclear weapons around the world. As a matter of fact, those quotes about wiping Israel off the map, just as a favor to me, look it up and check the real interpretation. They talk about getting rid of the regime of those people in Jerusalem.
I've gone back on numerous occasions. He said eliminate the state of Israel, wipe them off the face of the earth. That has been said by Ahmadinejad. It
literally says getting rid of the regime and remove from the pages of time. It is a lot different than Israel.
He's also a Holocaust denier.
Okay. No, I think that they're acting in self-defense. Ehud Barak said that they're acting logically and they're acting in their self-interest. And if he was an Iranian, he would probably think the same way. So they have a lot to contend with. And Barak said they were surrounded by nuclear missiles. Why wouldn't they have a natural? But there's a gross distortion of this debate that they're on the verge of a nuclear weapon. There is no evidence that they're on the verge of a nuclear weapon, and we shouldn't be ready to start another war.
You talk about a declaration of war. I've read the Constitution. It doesn't say you have to use any exact words, and George Bush got the authorization for the use of force. If you're going to use force, that seems to me to be to meet that definition.
Yeah, but it was explicit to go after those responsible for 9/11, right. And I voted for it. I voted for that.
Did I hear you say tonight, and I wrote it down, and I wasn't sure of the context because I will admit my attention was diverted, that we killed millions of Iraqis?
There was estimated, when Albright was asked that, the subject that when we were bombing during the 90s, they said that there were 500,000 Iraqi children died because of our bombing and sanctions and blowing up their water plants and all. And she says, if that's the price to pay, we have to. So for 10 years, we were bombing them. And don't you think we would be annoyed if somebody bombed us for 10 years? So in comparison, they can say that we have killed a lot of the people. We dropped drones, on Pakistan. What if they did that to us? Wouldn't we be annoyed? And that's not self-defense.
I'm a believer that no country has shed more blood in defense of freedom for Muslims around the world than the United States, nor has there ever been a country that has accumulated more power and abused it less than us. I got to get this final question in. This came up in 2008 when you ran, and I've asked every question of Newt Gingrich involving his background, his controversies, everything. Same with Mitt Romney. And I brought up, and I really admire your fierce supporters, but when I brought up the issue of your newsletters from the early 90s and some really outrageous things that have been written in there, and you had gone on record saying you had no idea what was in them, that kind of surprised me. Why do you not take responsibility for the things that were in your individual newsletters?
Well, in 2002, the Texas Monthly reviewed that, and they wrote a long article, and that's a real liberal newspaper. So you read that, and you'll find out.
Well, I read Reason Magazine, which is libertarian.
I did not write it. And I do not support those views. And they're painted as that make me think that, I'm a racist or something. But
there were some pretty racial things in there.
I'm the greatest defender of civil liberties, especially when it comes to the inequities in our judicial system, with blacks, the imprisonments for the drug wars, the number of blacks who get the death penalty.
I got to run. Let me ask you one last one. Do you know who did write it? And do you repudiate what was in your newsletter?
I do not. And I don't believe anything of that stuff that they've quoted.
Okay.
How about tomorrow? Remember, December 16th.
Oh, that's
the
right.
anniversary.
The Tea Party.
The Tea Party. Very important date. That is when the Tea Party movement was started 4 years ago. That's the modern Tea Party movement.
And for all your supporters, I asked every other candidate questions of controversy as well. Good to see you, Mr. Paul.
Take care.
All right, hang on one second. And we still have lots more to come tonight as we are live in the Spin Room. We're in Sioux City, Iowa. Tonight, coming up next, Texas Governor Rick Perry is here. And then later, we'll check in with Congresswoman Michele Bachmann, who was on the offense tonight. That and much more straight ahead.
There are a lot of folks that said Tim Tebow wasn't going to be a very good NFL quarterback. There are people that stood up and said, well, he doesn't have the right throwing mechanisms, or he doesn't, he's not playing the game right. And, he won 2 national championships, and that looked pretty good. We were the national champions in job creation back in Texas. And so, but am I ready for the next level? Let me tell you, I hope I am the Tim Tebow of the Iowa caucuses.
All right, we're coming to you live from Iowa, the site of tonight's Republican debate. And joining me now is the Texas Governor, Rick Perry. How are you? Is Tim Tebow? That means you're going to run the ball a lot. Do you like to take the ball and run?
I'll do whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes?
Whatever it takes.
Tackled?
I think Tim's the same kind of guy. I mean, he's just, I love him. I love him being a man of faith who is not afraid to stand up and proclaim his faith. And, he is a great American, in my opinion. And
it's funny.
He's the second best player on the Denver Broncos.
Who's the first?
Von Miller,
okay.
Texas Aggie.
I'm just checking. All right. Yeah, I spoke to him the other day, and I said, it's really hard. I'm a Jets fan, but I really was pulling for him in all these games because he's getting beaten up, and I think he's a good role model.
Yeah, because Tim and Von Miller both have ended up at Denver. I'm paying a lot more attention to Denver now. So
I think the country's paying a lot of attention to Tim Tebow. It was funny at the beginning of this. The question came up whether or not you're a good debater ready to go up against Barack Obama. And maybe I'm very sympathetic to this because I'm on radio 3 hours a day, TV 1 hour every night right here on Fox, and I've had my little brain freeze moments. I thought the media made so much of that it was difficult, but you really seem to have found your footing in these debates. Do you feel more comfortable? Do you think maybe you went in too early?
I'm not going to sit and try to analyze why or what have you. I know the last 2 or 3 debates every one has been better, and I think that the conversation that we had tonight on the stage about the preparation and the hard questions and having to perform, whoever our nominee is, and I intend it to be me, is going to be very prepared to stand up and contrast themselves with this president that has driven America into the ditch.
I thought you got a really good reaction to your concept of a part-time Congress.
Yeah, people get it. They understand it. And listen, it works. And when their initial response in Washington was, hey, don't talk about that. We need to be up here. We got a lot of things going on. But if they'll really think about it, being back home, having a regular job, spending time with your constituents, cut that pay, because that is a type of term limits. I'm telling you, in the state of Texas, our legislature only meets for 140 days every other year. We pay them $600 a month. The average length of time, I want to say, is about 6 years. The people come, they do their service, and then they go back home. I think the same thing will happen in Washington, D.C. if we go to a part-time Congress. And I am very serious about it. And I think Americans are ready for it, and our country will be better off.
You said if we got 2 things, the part-time Congress and the balanced
budget amendment.
Well, first of all, there's different variations on the balanced budget amendment. I'm for the balanced budget amendment that reins in spending.
Yes, sir.
And not one that opens the door for higher taxes to pay for more spending.
You got to, and in our plan, we laid out the flat tax of 20%. We talked about cutting spending, 18% of gross domestic product by 2020. You pass that balanced budget amendment that does exactly like you're talking, without allowing for more spending, and that tax plan that we put in place. We can get this country back on track in a hurry, and particularly with the energy industry. And I thought the panel did a pretty good job tonight as they talked about energy being one of the real keys to getting America back on track.
All right, how important is Iowa? How well do you need to do? You've run a lot of ads here in the last number of weeks.
I'm going to be in 44 cities over the course of the next 8 days, and then take a little break for Christmas.
44 cities in Iowa.
Oh yes, sir. Yeah, I'm in Iowa until January the 3rd, except for about 3 days I spent at home home to celebrate Christmas with my family. And then I'm back in here on the 27th instead of January the 3rd. So there are a lot of Iowans who are going to have the chance to shake my hand and talk and ask me questions. And I really think that not only with the momentum that we've got from the debates, the ground game that we've got here, we're going to surprise some people in Iowa.
All right. Governor, good to see you. Thank you so much.
It's always good to see you, Sean. God bless you. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you, too. And let not your heart be troubled. Congresswoman Michele Bachmann is coming up next as we continue our post-debate Spin Room show live. We're in Sioux City, Iowa, as Hannity continues.
We know without a shadow of a doubt that Iran will take a nuclear weapon. They will use it to wipe our ally Israel off the face of the map, and they've stated they will use it against the United States of America. Look no further than the Iranian Constitution, which states unequivocally that their mission is to extend jihad across the world and eventually to set up a worldwide caliphate. We would be fools and knaves to ignore their purpose and their plan.
And welcome back to this special post-debate edition of Hannity. We are in Sioux City, Iowa. That was Minnesota Congresswoman Michele Bachmann. That was earlier tonight, and she joins us now from the Spin Room. Congresswoman, how are you? Good to see you. Thanks for being with us.
Sean.
You know, we just had Ron Paul, and I like the idea when he says cut $1 trillion. His foreign policy scares me, though. Iran is trying to get nuclear weapons. They are fighting proxy wars. They did kill American soldiers in Iraq. They did want to assassinate an ambassador on our soil, and President Obama is begging for our drone back. It's a little frightening if we don't take this seriously. What would you do if you were president now?
Well, as President of the United States, I'd have every option on the table. And we wouldn't be at the position that we're in now because President Obama gave Iran the worst gift that he could give them, the luxury of time. Unimpeded for 2.5, 3 years, they have been constructing a nuclear weapon. The whole world knows this. This isn't any shock. And for Congressman Paul, and with all due respect to him, I mean, I have a lot of respect for him, but he's absolutely wrong. Can you imagine getting this one wrong?
And if they have a weapon...
This will change the course of history.
Well, potentially for me is I believe him when he says he wants to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. He said earlier that perhaps I need to go back and look at the interpretation of Ahmadinejad's remarks. And I'm like, interpretation? He said it repeatedly.
As a matter of fact, he said it in August. He said it in September. He was here at the UN General Assembly and said once again that he is going to eradicate Israel off the face of the map. And if there's anything that history has taught us over the last 100 years, it's that when a madman speaks, we better listen.
It's very interesting tonight because going into this, I would have bet that the debate would have been more confrontational. The only person that was willing to go after people in this debate, it seems like a lot of people were avoiding, I don't know if they were playing it safe, but you really wanted to go after Newt Gingrich on specific issues. Abortion was one of them towards the end of the debate. Freddie Mac, Fannie in the earlier part of the debate. He was refuting everything you said, saying that you didn't have your facts right. When he says he has a 98.5% voting record and he says he's not a lobbyist, that he can prove he wasn't a lobbyist because he wasn't registered, what is your answer to his rebuttal?
Well, it was insulting for him to say that because my facts aren't wrong. We have the facts. We put it out to the media. And the fact is, in 1998, the Republican National Committee wanted to pass a resolution to say that they weren't going to give any money or any funding to any Republican candidate if they support partial birth abortion. Well, Newt Gingrich is the one who boldly strode into the RNC and said, look, I am going to campaign and I am going to support any Republican candidate if they support the barbaric procedure of partial birth abortion. That is, in fact, what he did. And you heard Newt Gingrich tonight admit it as much because he said, I wasn't going to stand for a purge. At first, he didn't say that, but then he did make the admission. He did make that remark, and that's remarkable.
Is there a difference between his position and whether or not the Republican Party will have a litmus test on either abortion or a specific part of the abortion debate or any other issue for that matter.
Partial birth abortion is the most reprehensible act that there is. And this got out to the public. That's why this was such a major issue, because the public understood across the United States then that the Republican Party wasn't going to get after other Republicans that were for partial birth abortion. This hurt us as a party, Sean, and it was because of Newt Gingrich, who decided to say that he was going to campaign for people who backed partial birth abortion.